Story 1. The day after my 30th birthday, I was sitting on my deck, thinking and smoking a cigarette. I thought about how I wished I knew then what I know now. I wished I could start over and become an artist, learning to play the guitar. Then it hit me. I'm only 30. Chances are good that I'll live until 60. I can start over. This summer, I'm turning 60. I am an award-winning artist. I can play the guitar exceptionally well, and I haven't smoked in over 20 years. Story 2. M57 here. As individuals, we focus too much on our jobs and advancement. Remember that what matters is your relationships. All of them. Family, friends, and life partners. Yes, I achieved a lot at work, but ultimately what matters after you can pay for the basics is the people in your life. Story 3. For me, it's about what I wish I had done when I was younger. I should have been smarter with money, especially in my early 20s. Now that I'm 30, I feel like I'm a bit behind. Story 4. Take care of your body or it will tell you what to take care of. Also, do not be afraid to chase your dreams. Story 5. I wish I hadn't turned 30 just before the COVID-19 pandemic. I am suddenly in my mid-30s and I don't know how I got here. Story 6. I need to focus more on finances and have discussions with my wife. She tends to spend more than I do, and our debt has been increasing significantly. Story 7. Quit trying to impress people. I spent my 20s accruing so much debt in an effort to keep up and impress others that I eventually realized they didn't even matter. I spent the first half of my 30s getting out of that debt, and now I'm approaching my 40s almost completely debt-free. I only owe for my house. Story 8. Stick with my health. At the age of 35, I am re-entering the journey. In your 20s, you can afford to waste time. But at 30, it's time to get it together. Eat healthy, work out, go for walks, find a family doctor, see a therapist, and start preparing for retirement. Also, make sure to see your friends. You can feel a bit strange if you don't engage in socialization from time to time. Learn to love yourself, and you'll be ready for your 40s and beyond. Story 9. I have 2 regrets for my 30s. Not living in another country and not taking more career risks. Both would have pushed me out of my comfort zone. It seems that life will eventually push you out of your comfort zone whether you want it or not, so you might as well do it intentionally as early as possible. More people should try self-employment or freelancing for at least a year. Learning how to make money independently and stay productive without a supervisor is invaluable. Story 10. Eat more fiber. Millennials and Generation Z are facing significant colon cancer risks. I mean, to alarm you, eat more fiber and start now. I understand that meal planning and cooking can be difficult, and not all sources of fiber are appealing to everyone. However, you should find ways to incorporate it into your diet. For example, you can consume chia seeds soaked in water or enjoy black beans as if they were candy. Just find a way to get it into your diet. Also, do not ignore the symptoms of colon disease, and do not let doctors tell you that you are too young to be concerned. Story 11. I maintained my healthy habits. I got married and had my first child at 31, so turning 30 felt like a significant lead up to those events, and everything else I was doing fell down my list of priorities for obvious reasons. However, I never picked those habits back up, and now I'm facing the consequences. I'm still a fun dad and a good husband, but I wish my family could experience the better version of me that I was in my 20s when I actually had the energy to run around like a maniac. Story 12. I'm not yet 30, but I knew someone who was 37 and fantasized about waking up one day suddenly 18 again. One day, he decided to pretend he had been 90 and just woke up 37 again, which changed his whole outlook. Story 13. My health has improved significantly. I had been overweight for most of my life, and it got so bad that I even considered weight loss surgery. I was unsure about that route, but I knew I needed to make a change. It is common for the women in my family to experience severe joint swelling, and my legs would become extremely hard, making it difficult to walk. I was always tired and suffered from debilitating sciatic nerve pain. I decided to start eating better with the help of my brother, who is into fitness. It has almost been a year since I began, and I haven't looked back. I have lost 60 pounds and realized I could feel so much energy in my 30s. I found myself with more energy than my friends in their 20s. I am very happy with where I am now and proud of myself for being mostly consistent for a year. I cannot see myself returning to my previous eating habits. I enjoy this healthier lifestyle and wish I had started it sooner. Story 14. Once I had a child, the biggest immediate gift was the death of all regret. Every joke I told that no one laughed at, every job interview I failed, and even the girls who cheated on me, all of it formed the path that brought him into the world. To go back and do anything differently would unmake him. Story 15. My girlfriend and I wrote down everything that was important to us in life. Then we ranked them from most to least important. Afterward, we combined our lists to see how they fit together and what our shared goals and priorities were in life. What we ended up with, by chance, was a roadmap for our 30s. We accomplished everything on the roadmap. It was an incredible success and a wonderful way to spend our 30s. Now at 39, I am ready to do it again. Story 16. I could have been fitter, but overall, when I turned 30, I realized I very much want to fill my life with children, family activities, meeting friends, and creating meaningful experiences. First, I ended my relationship with my previous partner. Then I found my husband. I cultivated a relationship with him, his family, and friends. I also improved my relationships with my family, went back to therapy, and did my best at work. Now, at 34, I am going to have a baby, so I feel like everything is progressing as it should. I have no regrets, and I feel very blessed. Story 17. Diet and stretching are important. You can't eat just anything anymore. My weight spiraled out of control, so much so that my wife left me. It takes a long time to lose weight once you gain it as you get older. After I lost some of the weight, I started stretching daily, and you won't believe how much better you feel. Story 18. Buy index funds. I came from a poor family and didn't know what they were. Keep diaries. Get out of the house more and improve my interpersonal skills. I stayed indoors for years. Spend more time with family. Life is short. Story 19. I was very focused on how I was perceived. I wanted to marry and have a family, so I dated and faced a lot of rejection. I struggled. I was, and still am, overweight, went on diets, worked out intensely, and lost weight, yet still had no relationship. I met someone I thought was great and married after 4 years together. He changed overnight into a narcissist, expecting perfection from me while contributing nothing positive to the relationship or my life. I filed for divorce after barely a year of marriage, at that point 38, with no kids, no family, and feeling alone. I focused on myself, got therapy, and dealt with the trauma of my marriage, the feelings of betrayal, rejection, and being childless after discovering that infertility made it impossible for me to have a child. I learned to forgive myself. I feel so much better. I am strong and confident. I met a wonderful guy, and I believe it's because I worked on myself. I wish I had done that at 30, as it might have saved me from my difficult divorce. Story 20. When I turned 34, I quit drinking. I definitely wish I had quit at 30 or sooner. Now, going on 8 years sober, I am loving life. Story 21. I would travel more, spend less on dining out, and explore more of the world. Especially now that there are many ways to find information about budget travel, safety, and what to see in different locations. Overall, I want to experience more of my country and the world while I am younger and able. Story 22. When I turned 30, I had just started my Doctor of Philosophy program and thought I would date once I completed my classes. However, I finished my classes in fall 2019 and began my dissertation in spring 2020. I dated one person for a while after the COVID-19 pandemic, but now I am less than 2 months away from 40 and still single. I would love to be married and have a partner, but dating has been a nightmare. Most men my age fall into 3 categories. 1, they don't want to be married, which is fair, but not what I'm looking for. 2, they want children but don't already have them, which means I'm not their type. Or 3, they are divorced and seem confused about why, showing a lack of self-reflection. Divorces don't just happen. Story 23. Being stricter with my money. I made unnecessary purchases like big screen TVs and the latest refrigerators, washers, and dryers. Story 24. I wish I had lived in the moment and been present a bit more. A lot of my 20s felt like rushing through to get to the next thing. You never realize how precious time is until it's on a shelf. Story 25. Probably earlier, but be diligent with sunscreen. Melanoma is serious. The average age of diagnosis is 61, due to a lifetime of sun damage. Story 26. Mainly for women. I wish I had come off hormonal birth control sooner and learned more about women's health. I was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome after we started trying to conceive and unfortunately experienced a miscarriage. I knew very little about how my body functioned or what issues to expect. I believe that if I had stopped taking the pill earlier, I would have been better prepared. Additionally, if I had educated myself more about miscarriage before getting pregnant, I could have made more informed decisions. Story 27. Money, starting at 28, now 31, is not enjoyable and diminishes the hope of achieving financial stability. Story 28. I did myself a lot of favors by working out and eating clean for most of my 20s. I am getting back to it now, but I wish I had tried to maintain that higher activity level and better diet through my late 20s into my 30s. Story 29. There's really nothing I could have done to change things by the time I turned 30. At that point, I had been struggling with alcoholism for years, though I don't know the exact duration. 2 weeks after I turned 30, my kidneys and liver began to fail. I spent nearly 2 weeks in the hospital, undergoing weekly blood tests and taking numerous medications each day for about 6 months to regain some level of normalcy. My advice: if you need the kind of relief that drugs can provide, choose any option other than alcohol. Story 30. I focused on things I could control and let go of what I could not. I took better care of my health. I see people for who they are, not for who they could be. Story 31. I thought about where I wanted to be at 40 and what I needed to do to get there. This includes trying for children earlier and starting a postgraduate program sooner. After 3 years of fertility issues and now approaching my late 30s, I find myself losing interest in my career and facing the prospect of being childless by circumstance. Although I recognize this as a regret, I was with my partner at 30, which is a choice that others may not have the opportunity to make. Story 32. I took time to understand what I wanted in life, what made me happy, and how those things were different from what I wanted a decade ago. Now that I am over 40, I realize that spending more time on self-knowledge and understanding could have led to better relationships, friendships, and experiences. I also recommend choosing experiences over material things and drinking a bit less alcohol. You will still have a good time and remember the experiences more. Story 33. Quit drinking because, like a light switch being flipped, hangovers become absolute horror shows at 30. Story 34. Learn at least 10 basic recipes that save you time. By the age of 30, you may not want to cook as much. Take some time outside and step away from a screen. Be kind to yourself. Engage in activities that bring you joy. It doesn't have to be your dream job, but pursue something you believe in. Story 35. Stop drinking, at the very least not to excess. Perhaps I could still have a drink with friends or my father. I have been sober for 3 years, and I didn't start working on it until I was 39. Story 36. I wish I had been more concerned with eating better and controlling my weight. I am still athletic, but it's easier to gain weight than lose it now, and my knees are paying the price. Story 37. Take care of your health, your mind, and keep in touch with extended family and friends if you enjoy it. Story 38. I live in such a way that I will not regret a single thing I did. You have to live and feel. You also need to plan ahead and listen to your body. I always make the best decision with the information at hand, and there is no wishing later that I had done something differently. My advice to young people: do not worry about other people's opinions. Live your life, you have only one. Enjoy what you have, pursue your dreams, and dream big. You will experience great love and fulfilling relationships. It's just a matter of time. Remember to take care of your body and spirit. You will not feel indestructible forever. Also, stress is harmful, and although many people do not understand, Spending a day or more alone can be healing and beneficial. Story 39. Invest in your health. Treat it like a valuable asset and skill. Practice the skill throughout your life. I just turned 40, and aging is happening. It's strange to acknowledge. I have dedicated a lot of time and energy to my health, and I will never stop. Your health underpins every aspect of your life. Being healthier improves your work, relationships with others and yourself, mental health, and essentially every part of your life. Story 40. In retrospect, I wish I had invested more, saved more, and bought Bitcoin when it first came out. I was always good at relationships, marriage, friendships, family, health, spiritual growth, and career, but my future retirement was not a priority in my 20s and 30s. Story 41. Paying debts, saving, and living within a budget are essential aspects of financial intelligence. I recognize that I could have done better in this area. It is vital to live within your means, and I have not managed this well. As my children grow and learn about life, I have already begun teaching them the importance of saving and being responsible with money. Story 42. Spend more time with family. My last grandfather died 3 years ago. My wife's last grandmother died last year. My mother and stepmother were diagnosed with cancer this year. Story 43. Fitness and health. I was not unhealthy by any means, but after starting my running career at 45, I wonder what would have happened if I had started in my 30s instead. Even at 45, I have noticed some positive changes in my health. Story 44. When I was 25, I got myself in great shape, the best shape I've ever been in. It wasn't even that hard given my schedule. From 25 to 30, I got busy and gradually let myself go again, gaining all that weight back. Now I am in my mid-30s and have the free time to focus on my health again, but I am older, and the weight doesn't come off as easily as last time. I don't build muscle as easily as I did before. I wish I had maintained those good habits and not fallen back into my old ways. Story 45. Invest as much as you can and take care of your body. Work an extra job if you have to. People say your 20s are for finding yourself. That is not true. Those years spent investing in yourself and prioritizing self-care will allow you to retire early and maintain functionality. Going to bars, eating out, and taking unnecessary trips can cost you a couple of decades later in life in terms of additional work. Story 46. I wish I worried less about my 30s. It's fine. I feel the same. I get treated differently, which is frustrating, but that's the only difference. Story 47. I am going to discuss a topic that may be seen as controversial. I would have spent much less time trying to maintain friendships and relationships simply because they had existed at one point. I stretched myself very thin in my 30s, trying to actively preserve friendships from high school and college, which ultimately was a significant detriment. Time should have allowed those friendships to naturally drift apart after that chapter of life ended. I clung to the identities I once had rather than embracing the identity I had developed over the years. This prevented me from branching out, growing, and meeting new people. I remained stuck in the remember when phase for far too long and neglected the let's do mindset. As a result, when I reached my 40s, I realized that many people I had invested in did not reciprocate that effort. In summary, do not be afraid to say goodbye to make room for new beginnings. Story 48. I wish I had been pickier when dating. Loving someone is not a good reason to stay if there are other warning signs. Story 49. Start a business in your 20s. In the beginning, I was still young and immature, but by my mid to late 20s, I had gained enough experience to start my own business and become much wealthier and financially independent. Living to work for others all your life is not fulfilling unless you have a very good job with a high salary. Story 50. Nothing. My 30s have started perfectly, and I love where I am heading now. I wish I had taken more advantage of my younger years instead of wasting them and taking them for granted. Story 51. I should have been diagnosed with ADHD earlier. I am not getting married. I have tried to find new hobbies to keep myself busy and make new friends. I didn't expect to see many of my friends once they had kids or moved away, so it feels lonely now. Story 52. Finding a place to store precious metals can help hedge against inflation and currency devaluation. Story 53. I wish I had maintained better cardiovascular health. Now I get winded after 3 flights of stairs or a jog to the mailbox. Story 54. Focus on my business and being stable solo instead of being trapped in a codependent relationship with a trauma victim. Story 55. Saving money and investing. I entered the property market in 2020 and again in 2022, which has been my best financial decision to date. Story 56. Finding a girlfriend who will become my future wife. No one cares what you do after you turn 30. Story 57. I achieved the goals I thought I was too late to accomplish, specifically finishing my degree. Story 58. I had my children in my late 30s, which means I will likely be in my mid to late 60s by the time my grandchildren are born. If I live that long, I may be in my 90s by the time my great-grandchildren arrive. I recently watched my grandmother sitting with her 14 great-grandchildren, and I could see the happiness on her face. She is 85, and it is something I would like to experience. Seeing my children succeed in life, watching my grandchildren graduate high school and university, and begin their careers. I would love to be a great-grandfather. I wish I had my children in my late 20s or, at the latest, between 30 and 31. I was definitely in a position to do so. We just waited for everything to align perfectly. Story 59. I wish I had gotten my finances in order and had never taken out any lines of credit. I am now debt-free, which is great, but I can't afford to buy my own house. I have no savings and a job that barely pays. I wish I had gotten my life together sooner and had pursued a career instead of avoiding it out of fear of failure. You don't need to have everything figured out, but for me, as I get older, it becomes more difficult not to feel weighed down by the fact that everyone else seems to be so much further ahead. They are in their late 20s or early 30s with homes, cars, marriages, careers, children, and pets. I am in my early 30s, struggling mentally, living in my childhood bedroom, and desperate for a change. All I have ever wanted in life was to build or buy my own home, and it seems less likely with each passing year. Story 60. I still had an unhealthy amount of concern for what others thought of me. It took me until my 40s to start becoming my authentic self. It turns out the authentic me is a lot more fun and confident than the perfect wife and mother I tried to embody in my 20s and 30s. Story 61. I started investing even if it was a small amount per month. This would have given me knowledge about it much earlier. I have been putting off getting into it for 6 years, and now I feel a bit behind. Story 62. I had a sports injury in my 20s that severely affected my left knee. Instead of working on it to improve, I ignored it. I stopped exercising and gained weight. I started focusing on my knee around the time I turned 31 because it got worse each year. I'm now 36, and while my knee issues have largely resolved through rebuilding muscle, it's really hard to lose the weight. I don't want to return to my 6% body fat days, but I also dislike the current muscle bear look. It takes a long time to become leaner, and one night out drinking or eating poorly for a few days can reverse weeks of progress. It's frustrating because I'm not old enough to remember how efficient my metabolism was not too long ago. However, I'm old enough to realize that it's not functioning the same way anymore. Story 63. Explore various roles across different industries to gain experience and exposure. The challenge is that full-time work helps to cover expenses. Story 64. Invest. Even if it is only $100 a month, as little as it may seem, that would be nice now. Invest as much as you can comfortably afford. Story 65. Look after your back. You are not invincible, even though you may feel that way in your early 20s. Spinal discs do not heal to their original form. Story 66. I have always been slim and worked out. At 31, I started noticing it was much harder to keep weight off and had to be very mindful of my eating. I could not just eat whatever I wanted like I used to. I am now 34 and have gained 10 kilograms, finding it very difficult to maintain my weight. I wish I had saved my high salary when I started earning it at 30. Not being taught any financial literacy, along with childhood trauma and impulsivity, led me to spend my money frivolously when I could have invested in a flat. I regret this, but I am focused on improving myself. Story 67. I wish I had focused on my mental health earlier, but it was obscured by drugs and alcohol. This is better now, but I would like to have some of that time back with a clearer head. Story 68. I wish I had managed to care less about my mother's opinion of me sooner. Now in my 40s, I'm done trying to win her approval, but I wish I hadn't wasted so much energy on it throughout my 20s and 30s. Story 69. Going to the doctor for help with losing weight was important. I had physical issues that were interfering and could have been addressed much sooner. I kept thinking I wasn't working out hard enough or eating well enough. Story 70. Concerned less about 1. Material things and money after basic needs are met. Thinking I could help people solve their perceived needs for material possessions and the suffering their desires cause them. Over-optimizing my health rather than accepting good enough or acknowledging my limitations. And just generally prioritizing. Story 71. I waited to go to college until I knew what I wanted to do as a career, or at least had an idea of what would be useful knowledge in a general sense for jobs. I am strapped with debt that offers no financial benefit and has led to many closed doors that would have otherwise been open. I cannot stress enough. Do not let people pressure you to go to college, complete your general education credits, and figure it out as you go. I would have taken a gap year, gotten a job, and taken the time to find out what my passions are and what I am good at before going to college. I would probably be an engineer making six figures, but that isn't an option for me anymore. I enjoy the work I am doing now, essentially as a data analyst, and I excel at it, but I could have leveraged that into a college path that led to a much higher salary than what I make now. My advice is that everyone should go to a trade school after high school to learn practical skills that will save tens of thousands over a lifetime, not to mention making it much easier to get a job that is relatively resilient to artificial intelligence. Then, if and when you find your passions and skills, you will have earned a good salary and can afford to decide whether college is a path you want to take. The doors will be open if you have practical skills, working knowledge, and the capital to invest in yourself. Story 72. Health is important, and for me, physical health is a personal focus. I am currently working on improving it, and I am fortunate to be addressing this in my mid-30s. Story 73. At 60 now, there are some things I regret. Jumping off roofs as a kid took a toll on my knees and hips. I saved more and invested more, and I stopped worrying about what others think because the people in my 30s are not around in my 60s. I have learned to love life harder. Story 74. I wish I cared less about what people think, but I don't regret what I focused on, which was my baby at the time and building our home. Story 75. I wish I had become an expatriate sooner and at a younger age, as I feel a bit older now, even in my mid-30s. Story 76. Protect your ears, lower the music volume, and wear earplugs when using loud devices. Tinnitus. You are a cruel condition. Story 77. I wish I had stuck with martial arts during my younger years. It has been very beneficial for my physical and mental health. Story 78. I don't know how I could have done better in my 30s, health-wise. I raced bicycles for a significant part of that decade and stayed healthy and fit during that time. I maintained that fitness in my 40s, although I no longer race. From a different perspective, if I had been able to relocate for a different career path or job opportunities, that would have been the time to do it. Unfortunately, I was tied to a home and a mortgage that felt like a financial burden. The home's value decreased from 2009 to 2012, which held me back for the remainder of my 30s, even while I was paying the mortgage. While it was a small amount, it represented a substantial portion of my stagnant income. Being fit was easy. However, being ambitious was hard to pursue due to responsibilities and other commitments. Story 79. Honestly, nothing. I got into mountain biking at 29 and took a significant turn away from corporate America. I was a bike mechanic, worked for a nonprofit building bike parks and events, and even managed an underground bike park. My only advice to myself would be to focus on the bike shop job since they offered me the shop manager position. I don't believe I made the wrong choice because I traveled extensively and kept my mind and body youthful by hitting pump tracks and jumps. Additionally, getting kids involved in the sport is something I will never regret. Story 80. Understanding myself better and identifying my needs and wants in relationships would have saved a lot of hassle. Story 81. I just turned 36. If I could turn back time, I would have started a skincare and hair care routine sooner, forced myself to drink more water, cut back on caffeine, focus more on my personal life, taken learning another language more seriously, and prioritized getting enough sleep. At 30, I was always working hard as a landlord, multiple business owner, model, and crisis counselor, and I was incredibly stressed trying to prepare for my future. I neglected self-care for years and was unknowingly in a state of burnout. I didn't realize it until the COVID-19 pandemic occurred. My entire life was shut down for a year, and I recognized that I had become a dry-skinned, split-ended, chronically dehydrated, energy drink-dependent, sleep-deprived shell of myself. All those sleepless nights and 13 to 16-hour workdays were meaningless. My businesses were closed. I was in the midst of remodeling a fixer-upper house I had bought out of pocket. 2 out of 3 tenants moved out, and I made too much money to qualify for stimulus checks. I depleted the savings I had worked so hard to build up and found myself back at square one after a year. I have been living my life differently since then. I make it a point to take days off from work, carry a water bottle with me, and maintain a daily skincare routine. I am actually living in the moment now and wish I had started sooner. Story 82. I spent a lot of time prioritizing my romantic relationship and then marriage, but I lost myself. My former spouse had a long affair, and now that I'm out, I'm learning who I am again. I just wish I had spent more time and energy on myself instead of on a relationship. Story 83. I lived with depression and anxiety my whole life, thinking it was normal. I found out in my mid-30s that I was clinically depressed, and it feels like I wasted a lot of my years by hiding from and avoiding certain things, like making meaningful relationships and finding a partner. Story 84. I wish I had moved to a different job earlier. I knew I was getting a new boss and I didn't have a good feeling about it, but I thought it would be fine. I should have trusted my instincts. It would have saved me 9 months of mental stress and a few additional months of recovery after I left. Story 85. I had children at a young age. Now, in my late 30s with young kids, I can't help but worry that I won't be able to assist them with their own children if they decide to have them. Story 86. Smarter financial decisions. Moving does not solve your problems. Change starts from within. Cherish and protect relationships. Story 87. Here's what I did and still do, which means I don't have most of the problems you hear from people over 30 today. I go to the gym 4 times a week and do functional exercises that keep me strong and mobile, not split routines. Invest. Choose index funds or something safe. Invest a little bit each paycheck in companies or funds you believe in. Prioritize work-life balance and find a hobby or side gig you genuinely enjoy if you don't like your job. Stay with your partner if they are not abusive. The grass isn't always greener. You might just be bored. Story 88. Try to find joy in as many things as you can. Things will break down as time moves forward. Try to see the good in everything and in people. This perspective will bring out the best in those around you. Story 89. I had all these plans and then the pandemic hit. Everything became more than twice as expensive, which ruined my plans. It's frustrating because most people start having money in their 30s to do things like buy a house and start a family. I wish I could see the future and had bought something financially irresponsible a few years earlier. Story 90. Start investing now. Even if it's $5 or $10 a day, do it now. Don't wait. Be consistent and don't touch it. Story 91. I wanted to finish my master's degree and get in better shape by the time I turned 30. I achieved my goal and have been thriving ever since. I am now 36. Story 92. I should have started my health journey sooner. I wish I had focused on experiences rather than material possessions. Lastly, I should have begun saving for retirement earlier. Story 93. I wish I had stuck with cleaning pools instead of trying to play chef and starting my own business 15 years earlier, because right now I would be set for life. Story 94. Diet and exercise are essential for maintaining long-term health. If you neglect this, the effects will become noticeable in your 30s. Story 95. Focus on my health and goals. I wish I hadn't blindly accepted things without question out of fear of looking insecure. Story 96. And then there is the most dangerous risk of all, the risk of spending your life not doing what you want, betting that you can buy yourself the freedom to do it later. I am economically secure, but I wish I had started fully living life when I was younger. The financial freedom to do things is wonderful, but having a body that could better handle the stresses of some of the grander adventures is equally liberating. Don't get me wrong. I am still able-bodied for most things, but I have reached an age where a tumble often results in an injury. Story 97. I should have divorced my ex-wife when she cheated on me in my 30s. Instead, I divorced her when she cheated on me in my 40s. Story 98. I would have focused on making better friends and taking care of my physical and mental health so that I could find a healthy long-term relationship. My friends treated me poorly, and my low self-esteem at the time prevented me from finding a decent partner. Story 99. Mind your carbohydrates and sugars. If I had checked and controlled the foods I ate in my 20s, I wouldn't have as many health problems. Story 100. I wish I went to the gym regularly and made it a point to improve myself every day by 1%. I have wasted so much time trying to make big changes rather than focusing on being a little better each day. I also wish I had invested money, even if it was $10 a month, into something meaningful. Story 101. If you are in the corporate world, do not stay in the same job too long. Switching jobs every 2 to 3 years is the best way to significantly increase your salary. When you reach the age of 50, it may be too late to make major changes to your career. Story 102. Keep working out. I am over the hump now, but staying in shape is much easier than starting over in your 40s. Story 103. At 30, I started working as an emergency room nurse. I had finally made it out of the $10 an hour job range, and I was excited about leaving ambulance work behind. I took a job at my base hospital, thinking I knew it well and that it would be an easy transition. They were a small hospital and not corporate. They were the underdogs, and I believed I could do good and fight alongside them. 10 years later, after 6 managers, being underpaid, and feeling mistreated, I endured the final indignity I could tolerate. I submitted my notice and quit. I decided I wouldn't wait for them to give me 2 weeks' notice. They didn't deserve it. I got a job at a corporate hospital, and you know what? I received a $25 raise, a better work environment, and management that wasn't subpar. Don't always assume the underdog is the more virtuous company, and don't be overly loyal. Sometimes a place is an underdog simply because they lack quality. Story 104. Unless you are a car enthusiast or have significant disposable income, avoid purchasing expensive cars. New cars are acceptable, and leases are suitable, but do not exceed your budget. Remember, it is just transportation. If you drink excessively, consider stopping. You are advancing in your career, and drinking will not benefit you. Do not neglect saving and investing for retirement, even if it is only $100 per month. Take action. I have learned these lessons at 40. Story 105. If you are unhappy with anything, whether it is work, your relationship, or something else, take active steps to change it. Most of us spend our 20s beholden to other people in one way or another, and by the time you are 30, it is easy to get stuck in a rut. You may find yourself thinking, well, it would be unfair of me to leave now, or this is what I wanted, right? Now, if you are unhappy in any way, address it. Things do not get better without making them better yourself. Your job will not become less stressful. Your partner will not suddenly start loving you like they used to. Your parents will not be in better health than they are right now. In the same vein, you are never going to be younger than you are now, so if you want to do something, try to do it. I started learning the piano at 31, thinking I would never be able to play it. And I am all right at it now. So, look on the bright side. You might end up doing something you never thought you could. Story 106. Some of us don't have a choice, but I got stuck in a flat I never wanted to be in a job I despised, and in a university program I knew was going nowhere fast. Then COVID hit and held me back. Anyway, I feel blessed. I got back into a nursing program and qualified when I was 40. Now I have a job I like, earn decent money, and have a partner. I feel like my 30s were struggle years. I should have gotten rid of my flat, left the unsatisfactory program I was in, and used the job I disliked to save up for traveling. I also let myself go physically in my 30s, which is a shame, as I was very fit in my 20s. Trying to regain that fitness is not easy. Story 107. I love the story about the guitar. Just wonderful advice. I want to add that you should start saving money immediately and save as much as you can. You might feel a pinch while putting money aside now, but chances are you will live to 60, maybe even 80 or older. When you get there and haven't saved enough, life will be harder. At that point, you will really wish life was easier. Story 108. I am behind in retirement savings and, for the next couple of years, I am unable to contribute significantly because I am paying for daycare in a high cost of living area. Therefore, I feel stuck until I turn 40. Story 109. I got married in 2011, had a child in 2016, and bought a house in 2018. If I could have done it differently, I would have used the money from the wedding to buy a house in 2011 when the market was unfavorable. I could have had a civil ceremony to take care of the legal aspect and then celebrated with a big party a few years later, followed by having a child. I'm not sure this is specific advice for people in their 30s as much as it is general advice. If possible, buy a house when the market is unfavorable. Story 110. Don't ignore pain in your body. Get it checked out. Stabilize your core and build your glutes to support your body. Get a gait analysis done and spend time in the gym correcting muscle imbalances. Appreciate your body, love it, and take good care of it. Unrelated to your body, find joy in the small things. Don't take the little things for granted. Story 111. If you are an artist, stop waiting to acquire professional-grade tools, hardware, or software. Just start creating. Work on a portfolio for people to look at. If you draw, paint, or do 3D modeling, consider opening a platform for art commissions. You need to earn money. Stop being so idealistic. This is not a movie. Don't be one of those individuals who think, I am an artist. I don't want anyone telling me what to do. No, you need money. You must work your way into a position where no one can dictate your actions. This does not happen magically. You must earn it. You have your own limits and standards, of course. You are still a human being with dignity. However, everyone has a price. So what will you do when you need to pay rent or a medical bill, and someone offers you $300 to create an inappropriate drawing? If you are not middle class and do not receive support from your parents, it's time to get to work. If you do not want to create certain content, consider finding a traditional job while continuing to draw and practice. Understand that this will only be a hobby until your art can sell itself. You can create motel art, do custom portraits, and more. However, keep in mind that you are entering an oversaturated market. And what about artificial intelligence art? You likely do not need to worry about that for a long time. Even when AI-generated art becomes as good as traditional art in 5 years, people who actually buy and collect art will still value and want genuine pieces. Those who do not appreciate this are likely unable to comprehend the concept. They think that just because they are fine with using AI-generated images as phone backgrounds, someone who spent $8,000 on a painting of their cat will switch to AI. No, they will pay someone to create a traditional painting. This is something people often forget. The intrinsic qualities of traditional paint, the actual texture you can see and feel, cannot be replicated by digital methods. As long as you possess multiple skill sets that can be combined and applied usefully, you will be fine for a long time. By the time AI can completely replace you, the world will be in such a state that it won't even matter. Story 112. I wish I had pursued education beyond my undergraduate degree. My then boyfriend, now husband, had a very difficult experience in graduate school and actively discouraged me from considering it for myself. He went to graduate school directly from college, and I don't think he understood that it's different if you've been working in the industry for a few years, experienced professional challenges, and really know what you want to do. He pointed out that I still had loans from my undergraduate degree, highlighted how poor my undergraduate grades had been, and reminded me that we were planning to start a family in a few years, questioning the purpose of graduate school at that time. Now at 45, I reflect on how different my life might have been if I had invested more than just hard work in my career. It's one of my few regrets. Interestingly, he left the field he studied and is now doing freelance work in a completely different area. I believe it's fair to say he was projecting his own insecurities. Story 113. I wish I had focused more on finding a meaningful relationship. In my late 20s to mid-30s, I was entirely consumed with casual encounters and my professional life. I would have brief relationships and end them for superficial reasons, such as, the connection was good, but look at the size of his nose. Gross. Sometimes my concerns were valid, like not wanting to date someone who was already in a relationship or who struggled with addiction. Now that I am in my 40s, finding someone to date is challenging. Story 114. Stretching, exercise, and cardiovascular activities will become a habit. You will feel better every day because of it. Story 115. Focus on incremental, disciplined progress. There is a lot of good advice here, but in my observation, no single transformative moment usually arrives at age 30 or any age for that matter. It may happen for some, but do not aim for an aha moment. Real progress is incremental. Think of it like building wealth or working out. Saving, investing, generating returns, reinvesting, seeking promotions, or building your business are the consistent efforts. Similarly, going to the gym 4 times a week and increasing weights by 5 pounds at a time contributes to steady progress. If you are building that steadily, you are less likely to wake up at any age with a sudden realization of, what did I miss? Consistent discipline also keeps you engaged, reducing the likelihood of experiencing a moment of regret for missed opportunities. Story 116. I wish I had exercised more discipline with my creative hobbies. If I had dedicated a little time every day, starting at 31 instead of 37, I would be much further along today. Story 117. Be healthier, work less, and spend more time with family. Aim to lose weight and continue becoming thinner. Take it one day at a time. Do not worry excessively about things that may never happen. Story 118. At 30, I had 2 children. For years later, my life was mostly focused on my family due to my ex's controlling nature, which left little opportunity for me to pursue my own interests or friendships. I take some responsibility for not speaking up more, but reasoning with my ex was difficult. Parents need to be responsible to their spouses and family, but a healthy relationship also allows for personal interests. Story 119. I wish I had focused more on healing myself and cultivated enough love and respect for myself, which I still struggle with at 35. Story 120. Weight loss. I spent my 20s drinking and eating everything in sight because I enjoyed going out. I gained weight. Now, in my 40s, it is very hard to lose weight. I could easily lose weight in my 30s, but now it is really difficult to shed the extra pounds. I am trying, though. Story 121. I want to let you know that if you have kids or plan to have them before age 35, life will become really hectic, and you need to prioritize working out. I was in good shape throughout my 20s and early 30s. I maintained my weight well, but with kids in school, working, attending school myself, and managing home life, I gained 60 pounds. I am now out of shape and regret stopping my 4-day-a-week workout routine. Story 122. It is not a race, and everyone has their own path. Just try to balance long-term goals with making memories and being relatively happy. Story 123. Reconnecting with my inner child and unlearning negative beliefs about myself. I am doing this now in my late 30s. Story 124. I don't know if I would do anything differently because the timing of everything is just impeccable. I feel like events in my life have made room for one another. I would give different advice to a younger person. Story 125. Saving money and investing are important. You never know when your financial situation will change. I earned a significant income between 2015 and 2020 and wish I hadn't been so indulgent during that time. Story 126. Care less about what others think. Choose different company. Engage in more hobbies, travel, and social activities. Focus on reducing time wasted in general, while allowing yourself to relax and recharge without any guilt. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.